Yeah.
What exactly is a necessary precondition, right? Like, here's what I think about it is like, you want to go on the roller coaster. The condition is that you have to be this tall to ride the roller coaster, right? Is the precondition that you're a human, and the necessary precondition that there is intelligence? Like, like, what is the difference between a condition, a precondition, and a necessary precondition?
A condition, a precondition, and a necessary precondition. I'm not sure what a condition, just the state something is in. I don't know. The precondition would be like what would be prior to the current state, right? And necessary, what is necessary? So necessary means like can't fail to be otherwise. So like has to be. It's not optional as opposed to optional.
Okay. Um, so I want to circle back to why the Christian God is uniquely able amongst other gods to be necessary preconditions. You explained the Trinity, right?
Right.
Why is it that in order for the human experience to be intelligible, that the second persons of the Trinity must be born in Bethlehem?
Because the whole Christian worldview functions as a unit. So like if they're not, if Jesus isn't born in Bethlehem, then the Bible's false, and if the Bible's false, then we have no infallible foundation. The Bible has to be infallible, or else there's no infallible foundation. Because humans are fallible. So
Do you think the Bible is inerrant?
yes,
Do you think the Bible is literal?
yes.
So Jesus is the door, right? He is a door.
Well, we interpret it literally as possible. Obviously, there's figures of speech, and then we can tell that by like context.
Okay, so it's not literal.
No, we have a literal interpretation. I thought that's what you were asking. I didn't know you're I didn't know you're asking a dumb question.
I like dumb questions, right?
I guess so.
That's why I debate.
Yeah,
Um,
clearly.
okay, can you explain why there would be no intelligibility of human experience if, when Jesus was born, he was not brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh?
I mean, it's the
Like, what
same.
if it was silver, frankincense, and myrrh?
It's the same
Then, like,
thing.
it would just be a booming, bustling chaos, right? No one would understand this debate. It would like we'd all be confused and chaotic.
Well, if God can lie, then we have no ultimate standard of truth, and then it's like everything's up in the air, nothing's connected, nothing makes sense. It's like
Right.
a chance world.
Do you use a particular hermeneutic when you read the Bible?
Yes,
Which one?
literal.
Okay, but you just said that Jesus is not the door.
Right. So literal and hermeneutic, it's not that everything is literal. It's I said we make it as literal as possible. We don't add. We
What
don't. Add,
determines whether something in the Bible is possible to be literal or not?
it'd be self-interpreting. So the Bible would have it like within the
Okay, so
Bible.
it's what PMARS thinks.
No, it's like the
Well,
author.
the individual person, right, who reads the Bible. In this case, it's PMARS.
No, but when
Okay,
hermeneutics,
if it's not up to the individual, then what is the hermeneutic principle that lets us determine what is literal and what is metaphor?
we use like historical, cultural, contextual analysis. We use lexical, syntactical
Okay,
analysis, theological
but
analysis, the
that's okay.
literary
Wait, so
analysis.
do you hold to a literal hermeneutic or a historical contextual hermeneutic? Because they're in conflict with each other.
No, no. There's two main ways. There's two main ways of thinking. There's literal and allegorical.
And the question is, when we read the when Krishan goes into a room and reads the Bible, and P Mars goes into a room and reads the Bible, and we come back and compare notes, do you think that we're all going to list the same things as literal and the same things as metaphorical? We're going to disagree, right? So what is, as we were talking about earlier, what's the truth maker here? What is the ultimate
That's why
standard for the Bible?
you have to do exegesis, where we apply rules to find the author's intended meaning, and we went over the rules. And this topic isn't about hermeneutics. We're supposed to be talking about the preconditions.
1 minute. Well, I think it's important because you claim that the Bible is the foundational starting point, and I'm pointing out how using that as your foundational starting point will not actually get everyone on the same page by the end, right?
But we have
If we're all going
objective.
to use our own interpretation to
That's
decide
not what
what's
we're
literal
doing.
and what's metaphorical,
Hermeneutics
we're
is
not
the
going to agree.
hermeneutics is the science of objective interpretation. We just use hermeneutics.
Whoa. Whoa, that was a mouthful, right? Hermeneutics is about interpretation, right? I have no clue what objective
It's the
interpretation
science.
means.
It's
In
a
fact, I think that's a
science.
contradictory statement,
It's
right?
a
What it is
science.
to interpret is to use your own mind, your own beliefs, your own subjective opinions to come to a conclusion about what something means, right?
No,
That's not
no,
possible to be done in the
that's called
objective.
eisegesis. We're supposed to do exegesis. You don't know what you're talking about. You got to read books on the subject.
Sounds good.
Okay, that was it for the cross examination. Now we're going to go into the open discussion portion.
Mind if we do a little 2-minute break? I can use the restroom real quick.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys want to do it, just you can go and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Derby.
In the meantime, like everybody, if you have questions for our debaters, you can go in the side chat and you can tag me in the side chat, Daniel Hume, and I will ask them the question after the open discussion part of the debate is done. Or you can go into the YouTube and just post it on the YouTube video.
I think it's funny, like they hermeneutics. I always get asked hermeneutical questions when the topic's about the preconditions for intelligibility. It's like I don't understand. It's like interpreting the Bible would be like a different debate, which is like fine, whatever, because I researched this stuff, but
Oh, by the way, like later on, we're going to start our own show, and we're going to be talking about how Jesus is not the Messiah. So we can butt in and we can have a conversation about that later, P. Mars, if you're down to it.
Yeah, he didn't fulfill the prophecies, right?
Yep, 0.
Yeah.
But that's not for this debate. This is for later. So I'm not gonna go further. Okay.
All right, I'm back.
Okie dokie. You're back. So I will just start the timer. If you guys are okay with it for like 30 minutes.
Pretty much you can start it off.
Discussion. So you guys can start.
Do you think logic is universally true?
I think so. Like it's not exactly how I would word things, right? But I think I agree with the general sentiment.
I mean, it either is or it isn't. Is it a necessary truth?
I mean, look, like if we were to pick individual statements in logic, right, like the law of identity or something, like is that like a necessary truth?
Yeah.
I mean, I think so. Like, look, I'm not a philosopher, I'm not a logician or anything. Like, my understanding is that there are many forms of logic, right? Like when people talk about the 3 laws of logic, they're talking about like classical logic or this like Aristotelian view. But my understanding is that there's other views, right? There's like paraconsistent logics that allow for contradictions, so they don't hold to the law of non-contradiction.
That's not true though. Paraconsistent logic at a meta level still has to assume the law of non-contradiction, because without the law of non-contradiction, there's no difference between reason and non-reason. So you always have, yeah.
That's not my understanding, but like I said, I don't know enough about this.
Well,
like,
how is that? Okay, dude, if there's no contradiction, then everything is A, right? And if everything is A, then
look,
reason
I
and non.
that you can.
Well, if reason and non-reason do not contradict, right? Think about it.
Look, I appreciate that, and I can think about it and agree with you. But suffice to say, there are a number of professional philosophers who are doing what seems to be
you don't know what you're talking about.
Things like
okay, who cares what? But we're having a debate. I don't care what professional philosophers they can sit in their ivory tower. Do they get?
You did appeal to that earlier. I was wrong about.
I made arguments though. I was appealing to arguments.
You didn't.
Okay, now you're just incredibly bad faith. This is low character.
Could you look? I've been taking notes. I could have missed it. Could you reiterate Bertrand Russell's argument to me?
Yeah, that there's no empirical evidence for induction or account. There's no rational account for induction, and there never will be, because empiricism would beg the question, and rational account won't work because the future isn't necessarily the same as the past.
Maybe we're talking past each other here because when I've been using the word argument, I've been using it as like a series of premises that lead to a conclusion. And that's not what I heard right here when you recounted what you think is Russell's argument.
Well, I gave an informal version of it. Like what? Why is that an issue?
Right, but your informal version pretty much came to, oh, empiricism and rationalism can't be used because you shouldn't use them.
No, I said,
Right, that's like a horrifically circular argument.
empiricism begs the question because empiricism uses induction, right? So that's begging the question. So you can't use induction to prove induction. That's why empiricism doesn't work. Rationalism doesn't
So
work
you think
because it doesn't necessarily follow that the future resembles the past. And the point of a deductive argument is to show a necessary entailment. But this, we're not talking about a necessary entailment. We're saying it's just resembles, not necessarily.
do you think sorry, I lost my train of thought here. Oh, so you think that non-Christian worldviews all die to the problem of induction, and you think that Christianity solves the problem of induction?
Yeah, among many other problems, because we have a different starting point.
What's the solution to the problem of induction in Christianity?
That the problem is, how do you know the future resembles the past? And in the Bible, God says, I will order the universe. I'm the ordering principle behind the order and patterns you see in nature. And he tells us that he'll keep the order.
I pointed out to you earlier, and you agreed with me that before you read the Bible for the first time, you couldn't verify that your senses worked and that there was induction, right? Mm-hmm. How do you know that you correctly read the Bible if your senses are not reliable and induction is not reliable, right?
Because
like if the future is supposed to resemble the past, but there is no induction, maybe you didn't read the Bible. Maybe you read 10 comic books together.
Because chronologically, just because I have to start with my senses and my own reason doesn't mean that that's the ultimate like reference point. So it's a difference between like chronological priority and logical priority. So like, for example, I could give an argument, I could give you the conclusion first and then give you the premises, but the premises still have logical priority over on the conclusion, even though I chronologically give the conclusion first. So it's like the same thing. I don't have the problem with like justifying my sense data because sense data isn't my ultimate authority of what's true. My ultimate authority, I start with God's word in the Bible. So this is like my starting point, the Bible. I start
and then somewhere down the road we verify your sense data and induction.
Yes, yeah. You want to start with sense data or reason. That's the only other starting points. So it's either the Bible, sense data, or your mind. So it's like, where are you going to start?
And you choose the Bible before sense data.
Well, no. Proximately, I have to start with my sense data. So that's proximate starting point. But then the ultimate starting point would be God's word or the mind of God.
I don't quite know what you mean by proximate starting point.
Well, like obviously locally, I start with myself, my senses, and my reason. That's what I start with, and then I read God's word, and then logically I start with God. Locally, I start with myself. But God.
So you didn't use logic to read the Bible?
Because think about it like this: God exists before me, right? God is eternal. He's the beginning.
Sure, like temporally.
So he has priority over me. So I come down later. What
priority means
logical priority, because or ontological priority. Like
I don't know what that is.
He comes first. They're just saying he comes first. He has priority. He comes first.
Like temporally?
Well, temporarily, logically, ontologically.
So I know what it is for things temporally to be before and after each other, right? This moment right now is before this moment right now, right? Mm-hmm. What does it mean to be logically prior?
He has like the logical authority.
What is logical authority?
Like when we use logic, he's the final reference point. So I'm saying this is when I reason, this is the final reference point when I reason, as opposed to like my senses or my mind. So I don't have the problem of empiricism. So you're throwing like empirical skeptical problems. They don't apply to me if I start with God's word. And that's why I'm arguing to even debate and have the debate make sense. We have to stand on this to argue. Because think about
you have memories of reading the Bible, yeah?
yeah.
And did you verify that you weren't a brain in the vat at the time or since then?
Yeah.
How'd you do that?
Well, the worldview where I'm a brain in a vat doesn't provide for the necessary preconditions of intelligibility. And since we can't deny intelligibility, then the Bible has to be true. That worldview is like a unified description of reality, but it doesn't describe a unifier. So it's a contradiction. So only Christians have a unified description of reality with a unifier. Every other worldview is going to contradict because it's going to lack unity. There'll be no account for unity.
And like, look, if this debate was that the Christian God is necessary precondition for unity in a worldview, I mean, I still think that would be kind of trash, right? But we're talking about the intelligibility of human experiences, right?
That requires unity. You can't have intelligibility without unity.
You still have yet to provide any sort of reasoning for that.
That's not true. I'll provide it right now. So when we look at the big picture, we have how we connect facts together. In order to make like a prediction, like in science, we make predictions. That doesn't mean every prediction is accurate. Predictions show that reality is ordered and intelligible. And that requires an explanation. What makes the intelligibility possible? And unity in a rational structure is what explanation depends on. And the ultimate.
You've once again just boldly asserted, unity is what intelligibility depends on. I'm asking you to justify the statement, unity is what intelligibility depends on. Please justify it.
Yeah, if predictability of reality has no ultimate explanation, then trusting predictions is irrational. But we do trust them constantly. That only makes sense if there's a real foundation that makes reality rationally ordered in the first place, right? You're assuming there's a rational order, aren't you? That's what I mean by unity.
I don't know what that means.
A rational order. That that things connect to each other in a rational order.
Like, look, I've already told you, I believe in causality,
P then
right?
Q, if P then Q, that's like a connection.
Well, okay.
So if for anything to connect, there has to be an ultimate explanation.
Why?
That's what it means to connect. That it
I completely disagree. So like when we play Connect 4 and I line up 4 pieces, I've found like the ultimate foundation between the 4 red pieces.
If P then Q doesn't ultimately follow, then it's not true. Then it's ultimately not true that if P then Q. Right?
Can I get that on a plaque? That was great.
If P then Q doesn't ultimately follow, then it's not true that if P then Q. That would not be ultimately true. Right?
Could you so I know what it is for something to be true. What does ultimately true mean?
That there's ultimate context, that it's true within a rational ordered narrative.
Okay. As opposed now what it sounds like you're telling me is like the reason that there must be unity.
Let me put it like this. Let me put it like this: that it's actually true, as opposed to we assume it's true. That's a better way to put it. So if it's ultimately true, it's actually true. If it's not ultimately true, then we just assume it's true, and we have no reason to think it's true. And then
what it sounds like you're talking about are beliefs versus knowledge, right?
No, I'm talking about what's the ultimate standard of truth. If there's no ultimate standard of truth, then it's not ultimately true. Right?
That's just not language that I think we need to use, right? But like what it sounds like you're doing,
but then you shouldn't debate. Then you're contradicting
why things need an ultimate connection. You're saying,
why make
ultimate connection?
Why make a truth claim?
Ultimately true.
So you're saying, oh, this is true, but it's not ultimately true. Why even talk? You're not saying anything that's relevant.
Okay. I mean, I think I am. I think that this whole debate has been intelligible. I don't think that we needed God for it.
No, if there's no ultimate foundation for the debate, then everything we're saying is arbitrary. You're right and I'm right. What ultimately decides which one of us is correct in the debate? I'm saying I'm at least providing a candidate that Jesus can be the ultimate authority. I'm not sure, like, what are you saying that, like, you offered facts of the world, but then that can't even
Well,
justify its own
what I've
standard.
what I've really been saying the whole time is that there is no need for ultimacy in any of these
But then
explanations
why
or
are we debating?
foundationalism, right?
That's a contradiction to debate. Nothing
In
ultimately
your worldview, right?
in any worldview, nothing ultimately decides who's right in a debate. Is that what your view is? Nothing decides what's right.
Well, I think that individuals decide, right? Like if you listen to a debate
What?
and you want to decide who won, you're going to make a decision for yourself. You're going to interpret it.
What's
You're
the
going to
point of
use some
this?
sort
This
of,
is
sort of criterion
pointless.
that you've decided.
This is totally pointless to talk to you.
Okay. I mean, like, look, things that are objective is like a game of basketball, right? Like, we can just look at the facts of the universe and count how many times the basketball
Okay,
went
but
through the basketball hoop.
you keep evoking unified descriptions of reality and then saying that you don't need unity. So it's like you're so goofy, dude. That's the problem. Like I don't understand. Like why are you so goofy?
Kind of a goofy guy. That's a fair
Okay,
assessment.
it's just
I
weird.
think
Like
it's
you're
a
totally everything you're saying is a
it adds
contradiction.
levity, you know.
Everything you're saying is a contradiction, and I'm pointing it out. And I'm saying if you stand on the Bible, you don't have any of these problems, and you're just like I don't care. I mean, this is like talking to a flat earther. I'm like, here, look, I have this model that works, and you're like, no, but I don't believe it because no reason. Like NASA CGI or something. Like, what is this? Why is what guarantees that logic is going to be the same tomorrow? Why doesn't it change?
Actually, logic kind of changes a lot. Like I said, we have paraconsistent
Can,
logics
can
now.
2 + 2
There's
equal
lots of
5?
philosophers and logicians that are actively doing work within logic, fleshing out logical
That's you don't even know
systems,
what you're
creating new
talking about.
logical systems.
That's
Happens all the time.
they all assume the law of non-contradiction. Can you
Paraconsistent logics don't.
they do. Just at a meta level they do. Does 2 + 2 equal 4 or can that
Sure
be 5?
does.
Can it change and be 5?
Look, if you want to make a new mathematical system with the plus operator being
Uh-huh.
different from the normal plus operator, such that 2 + 2 = 5, then you can do that, man.
Well, do you think the
Totally
amount
fine.
of weight the bridge can hold, right? Because we'll use math to calculate that, right?
Sure.
Can that change?
Well, to be fair, there's things like stresses and like
But those still
deterioration that
follow
does change.
mathematical principles, right? So the bridge seems to obey mathematical principles, right? Can those change?
Uh, I think the bridge fall like it's beholden to the laws of physics, right?
That's what I'm
I don't really
saying.
think things
Which
like
can be
follow math.
represented.
I think math follows the world,
We would
right? I think
abstract
math is invented.
physics is we use math to abstractly represent physics. Is it representing
Sure.
something real or not real?
I'll go with real.
Okay. So you're saying there's an unchanging truth. Now,
Uh, I wouldn't say that, but go ahead.
okay, so can the weight math based on how math feels that day because math doesn't it changes. Do you think that the amount of weight the bridge can hold can change just based on how math feels that day? Like maybe it doesn't feel like holding your car, and when you drive over the bridge, you die, right?
Well, to be honest, this sounds more like the God worldview, where you're telling me that like somehow everything roots back to Jesus and that he's the
But
ultimate standard and he's the one who's
do you
deciding things. Like
believe that?
that's what that sounds like. And then you're trying to
ba-
like shove that into my worldview and have me anthropomorphize
I
mathematics and physics and saying that things depend on something. Like
I don't
that's your
understand.
view, man.
Okay, but in your view, based on how math feels today, it's going to decide like, well, maybe I
I don't know
won't
what that
hold.
means.
Well, can math can change. The math will go, well, I'm going to change today
No.
because I don't feel like holding the weight of this bridge. Does math do
Yeah,
that?
that sounds ridiculous. That's not what I said.
Okay, so there's an unchanging truth, right? That the bridge obeys.
I think you're talking about like the laws of physics, right?
Okay, let's go back. Yeah,
Keep saying
can
that.
they change? Can the mathematical principles that determine the
Okay, dude,
weight?
math is just language, right? Like we don't like
We can
invent
change
math. We don't like
language.
discover math and then
We can
like
change
discover like, oh my
language.
gosh, the world matches this, right? Like we
We can
observe the
change
world and
language,
we
though.
come up with a mathematical system, a language, right? That is able to describe things in the world, right?
We can change language, though. Can we change 2
Yeah.
+ 2 so it's 5?
Yes.
Really? So
Yeah,
then
you can
why
look, dude. There are
why do you drive over a bridge? Because maybe the math will change and you'll die. Why do you drive over the bridge?
no. You're completely strawmanning me
How am I strawmanning you?
because I'm trying to tell you that what I think can change are labels, language, and descriptions. Right?
I'm not
I told
talking
you
about
you could
that.
construct a new form of mathematics with a different plus operator, such that 2 + 2
Okay,
is equal
I'm
to
not
5,
talking
right?
about the labels though. I'm talking about what the labels refer to. The objects. Can those change?
I don't think that 2 is an object in the real world.
So it doesn't have properties.
But like, look, and how about this though? Like,
Does
this
2
is
have
just my view,
properties?
and the debate isn't just
Does
about
2
right
have
versus Krishan's view,
properties?
right?
Does 2 have properties? Do you believe
Anyways,
2 has properties?
I was trying to answer you. Can I finish?
Okay, go ahead. Does 2 have properties?
So you keep telling me, like I said, I can keep telling
Properties
you about my
nuts.
worldview.
Got him. Yeah, does 2 have properties?
I'm not sure if you actually want to hear my answer.
I want to hear, does 2 have properties? Answer that question. Properties nuts.
Excuse me?
Dude, does 2 have attributes and properties such that it's like different from 3?
Is 2 different than 3? Yes.
Okay, then
Right?
it's an
Do I think that
object. Then it's
2
an
is
object.
something that the number.
Then it's an object.
Anyways,
Yeah.
this is supposed to be a discussion. You got to let me get in.
Okay, well,
So,
if
okay, do I think the number 2 exists somewhere out there in the world? No, right? But like I said, I've been telling you about like my
So-
personal views during this debate.
how do you account
But
for
the-
immaterial objects in your view?
But the debate topic is about the Christian God being the necessary precondition, right? So you don't
Right.
just have to defeat Krishan's worldview and show that Krishan is confused about things. Because let me just admit, Krishan is confused about a lot of fucking things, right? But look, like let's say that I was a mathematical Platonist, right? I do think that the number 2 exists in the Platonic realm of whatever. So what now? Like what?
So
why? I
Platonism
don't need God
has
in that
this.
picture.
Platonism
doesn't.
doesn't. Platonism doesn't help you because you're just positing an imaginary realm you have no access to, and the Platonic objects are causally effete. Like they don't cause anything.
No. They provide revelation in this view.
So now we move on to lying. This is just totally bad faith,
Lying?
man. You're being incredibly bad faith. You're not answering my questions, and you're lying, and you're acting like
What am I lying about?
you're acting like you don't need to defend your starting point, right?
Well,
But-
what needs to happen is you need to show that
No.
all starting points besides the Christian God are insufficient, right? It doesn't like it's not enough to say that Krishan's starting point is insufficient. You need to show that all starting points besides the Christian God are insufficient. And not only that,
I
right?
have done that.
I'm still challenging this idea that there must be a starting point for intelligibility, right? And you still have failed completely to deliver any sort of argument, reason, or justification for that.
Because
without
you're,
simply
but
just
that's only
bullshitting
because
circuit.
that's because you're inept about how philosophy works. Because any worldview is going to require an account of unity, right? And I'm telling you that.
No.
But that you're just saying that because you're ignorant. You're just saying that because you're ignorant. So like that's just a personal incredulity and appeal to ignorance. So this is not. You're not making an argument. This is just bad faith. Because here's what it is, dude. You either start with God's revelation, right? We either start with the Bible or not. And I've demonstrated that if we don't start with this Bible, we have no account for unity and diversity. And no account for unity and diversity, there's no intelligibility. It's logically follows.
I don't think that you've established either of those, right? Like, what if I started with the Quran, right? I would have a God. He would be able to ground logic and intelligence.
No, he can't. The Quran, the God of the Quran cannot ground logic because the God of the Quran is an undifferentiated blob and wouldn't account for unity. So life would be an illusion. Logic would be an illusion. You need a Trinitarian God revealed in history. Only Christianity has that. There's no other view that has a Trinitarian God. And you need an ultimate reality that has both unity and distinction. Or else ultimately unity and distinction aren't real. And then ultimately nothing's true, nothing is intelligible. No, we can never have knowledge of anything. It's just like a mess. So why are you rejecting the only model of reality that can make facts facts? For what?
I'm rejecting your explanation Actually, I'm not objecting. I don't think I'm pointing out that you have yet to give an explanation.
I just
about
gave it.
Why
I just
Christian
gave
God
it.
has to be
It
the
has
only
to do
one,
with
right?
starting points. You start with this or you start with this. If you start with this, you get stuck in your brain. You can't defeat hard solipsism. You have to start with this. It's that simple.
How do you start with the Bible without using the other thing you pointed out?
I told you this is proximate and this is ultimate. So we're talking about what's our ultimate commitment. This is my foundation. So we have to talk about what foundation can replace this and the world's still intelligible. This answers induction.
What we need to do first,
The
Mars,
problem
is
of the one and the
establish that
many.
there must be a foundation.
If there's no ultimate unity, then there's no connections. We've already gone over this. You need a single unifying principle to even have an explanation, else the debate's arbitrary.
I know you say that we went over this, but all we did was listen to you boldly assert it, and then completely dodge any
This is
request for an
this
explanation,
is ridiculous.
a justification, or an argument.
I've made arguments. Here's an argument. If logic exists, logic requires a sufficient foundation. Do you disagree?
Yes.
You disagree?
Yes.
Are you saying logic doesn't exist? Or are you saying it doesn't need a foundation?
No, I'm saying I'm not saying either. I'm saying I'm not convinced that it needs a foundation. That's your
okay.
But
bear. If logic isn't grounded, it's floating detached from reality. I'm asking, how do we connect it to reality?
Well, but that's not what you said the grounding relationship was.
Yes, it is.
That's what ultimate, the grounding relationship is, just to provide ultimate context.
It's the same.
It's not about floating around.
It's the same.
That sounds like you're talking about like tying down a hot air balloon. It must be grounded, or else it will like.
That's why I keep talking about connections. There's no connection between the concept and the thing in the world. What connects them? Because logic is human.
I've already told you that. That there's causality in the world that connects things. It's just that I'm pushing back on the idea that everything.
But don't you understand?
Ties back and connected to this like ultimate foundation, the unity or something.
This is so ridiculous.
That's what you have yet to establish is necessary.
That's ridiculous. We successfully predict and explain things all the time. That shows that reality is intelligible. But intelligibility requires that facts exist within a rational, unified structure that makes them understandable. And that structure itself requires an ultimate explanatory foundation. So otherwise, everything reduces to brute facts or arbitrariness. So the very possibility of prediction, explanation, and reasoning presupposes a necessary foundation that makes them possible. That's what I'm arguing the Christian God is. You have failed to provide an alternative foundation. You just talk about like, oh, this view, that view. You haven't made an argument. You haven't made a counter argument. I've made an argument.
I mean, it kind of sounds like we're going in circles here. I don't really.
Yeah. Which circle can account for intelligibility? My circle can make the world intelligible. Can your circle make the world intelligible? Where's the account for unity? How do you solve induction? How do you solve hard solipsism? You're not offering anything.
Yeah, what I've done is push back against the idea that I can't do that.
You're ignoring. Right? You're literally using unity.
Do it, then we're still on a par. And
we're not. You're borrowing. Your view is parasitic on my view. You're borrowing from my view to argue against me. This is insane.
Fair enough. Like I said, I don't really have any more questions, but I'm happy to answer any of your other questions, or we can move to closing and Q&A. 4 minutes left, by the way, guys, if you want to know.
I don't know. I mean, like, so like, I feel like it's just like contradict. Like, do you think truth exists?
Does the external world exist? Yes, right.
Okay, but wouldn't you?
Corresponding with that external world, are there true things? Like, yes, absolutely.
But you realize, like, you have
the concept itself of truth exists somewhere? No, I think
no.
That's an abstract concept.
Why are we arguing then? You're arguing. This is so insane. So can this exist and not exist at the same time? This cup? Can this exist?
Not in the same way, in the same sense, right?
It can't.
The truth.
So what limits reality? I say Jesus limits reality, so that can't be the case. It's impossible. What in your view limits reality?
Reality.
Reality limits reality. So what you've just do?
I guess I don't exist. That I don't accept
All,
that
all,
there's like something beyond reality.
okay,
That
that's just.
reality is
But
like
you're just
beholden to,
relabeling the
and
problem.
that it listens to this other
But
thing.
you're
and, like, it's,
relabeling
like,
the problem.
subservient to it.
You're relabeling the problem when you say reality, because I'm saying what in reality limits the cup so the cup doesn't contradict and have contradicting properties. And you're saying reality, but that's just relabeling the problem. I'm actually offering a solution for intelligibility. It's Jesus. What's your solution? Reality? That's relabeling the problem.
Well, remember, I'm rejecting that there is a problem, right? And I'm pointing out to everyone.
Oh,
that
hand
I'm
wave
trying to show that there
dismissal.
is a
Good
problem.
move. Yeah, hand wave dismiss the problems. Yes. The perennial
I don't think
problems
I've
in philosophy.
hand-waved it. I think I've pointed out
They don't
pretty
exist.
thoroughly.
Yeah.
That's fine.
All the
Maybe we can do this.
philosophers are wrong. All these problems, they're not problems. Philosophers are dumb. Insane. I don't understand. Okay, well, I guess we can just move to the close. This guy's nuts. It's like T-jump.
If you guys want to stop here, we can stop here. There's a minute and
Yeah.
half left.
I'm cool with stopping
like it.
here unless you want to quite ask me something.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, and in that case, we're going to stop here, and we're going to do the 5-minute closing remarks, and we're gonna start with you, PMRs. I'm gonna start the timer as soon as you say your first word.
Well, my opponent keeps like his mouth writes metaphysical checks, but he has to go to the bank and commit absolute identity theft from my God to even cash these checks. Like he wants to talk about everything he meant. He's constantly bringing unified descriptions of reality. He keeps saying there's unified descriptions of reality. And I ask him, what is the unifier? He doesn't answer the question. So he wants unity with no unifier. He wants differentiation too. He wants to differentiate between, you know, uh, this is rational, this is irrational, this is good evidence, this is bad evidence. Where's the differentiator? I'm saying Jesus differentiates reality and non-reality. Jesus differentiates truth, falsehood. He's the rational authority. He sustains existence. And what in your view sustains existence? I never heard anything. I just heard it is what it is. So my opponent has used logic. He's made truth claims. He's relied on reason for this entire debate, yet he cannot account for those things within his worldview. Logic is eternal and uncreated, like Jesus. So he can at least provide a reference point for eternal, uncreated things. What in your view, what in your model, I didn't hear anything eternal and uncreated that you offered as a foundation for intelligibility. So as we see, because my opponent doesn't provide any other candidate, that it's not that Christianity is one explanation among many, it's the necessary explanation. There is no other candidate. If there was, my opponent would have provided one, but he wants to talk about like hermeneutics. This debate has nothing to do with hermeneutics. So the whole debate rests on the foundation of this Bible. And if you deny that, everything you say is arbitrary. So thank you for coming. Thanks for arguing with me, and thanks for hosting, guys.
Okay, thank you very much for your closing remarks. Krishan, it's your time. I will start the timer as soon as you say your first word. You have 5 minutes.
All right. So, is the Christian God the necessary precondition for the intelligibility of human experience? I think that I'm very confident now in saying no, he is not. Right. In my opener, I said that this really hinges on two things: intelligibility and human experience. Right. I didn't hear any pushback from PMARS on either of those two things. I think he agrees with me that there is human experience and that there is intelligibility in the world. Right. We're able as humans to understand and make sense of the world. He mentioned something about everyone receiving revelation, but just being in denial. So I think that maybe that's how he's going to explain why everyone has intelligibility. But as I think it's been pointed out numerous times now in this debate, these are unprincipled beliefs that are held dogmatically because of religion, right? There was no argument given for foundationalism. There was no argument given that we need to have ultimate context for anything. In fact, I'm not really sure that there was any argument given for anything, right? And I can appreciate that maybe they were given informally, right? But I think that once when I pressed him on them, it probably is the proper time to whip out a syllogism, and none of those were ever produced, right?
Dude,
Some
you're
people have
not
Bertrand
you're not
Russell,
worthy
they
of
all
a
go weird about that,
syllogism.
right? That sounded like
You're an
nonsense.
idiot.
So I think that it's pretty clear to me that PMARS is not sufficiently established that no other worldview is able to account for intelligibility, and like especially when we think about other religious worldviews, right? Like I'm more sympathetic. I don't believe it, but I'm more sympathetic to the idea that atheism, materialist atheism, can't ground X, Y, and Z or whatever. Like, and maybe you need a supernatural cause. Like, I think that's still hogwash too, but it's at least more conservative than the idea that it must be the triune Christian God born in Bethlehem, received gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Like the idea that if Jesus received silver instead of gold with his frankincense and myrrh, that there would be no intelligibility. I think it's just like really just sums up the whole debate, right? And it's just impossible to try and draw a line of inference from one of those to the other. Something I really tried to do during my line of cross-examination is establish to everyone that PMARS doesn't have an intelligible worldview, right? And I think that this debate was intelligible, but I think that I pointed out tons of contradictions in PMARS's own worldview, which he hounded me at the start about saying that once you have contradictory things in your worldview, that you need to discard them, right? The idea that the Bible is the foundation, but you can't know you can't know that your senses are working before you read the Bible. I think it's just a massive plot hole in PMARS's worldview. He's not able to actually know that he correctly read the Bible.
I completely responded to that. This guy's nuts.
He really wishy-washy answers about like whether a person can think they have revelation but be wrong. He said that like no, everyone is correct, but I think that's ridiculous too, as just the existence of all these different sects and branches of Christianity, as well as like testimony from countless individuals who say that they have received revelation or spoken to God. Those are all going to be in conflict with each other. They can't all be true. PMARS talked about God having knowledge, but not needing to justify his knowledge. I think that's unintelligible.
I said he is the
Have
justification.
free will
It's not
because
what I
of
said.
needing to be able to choose God, but there being free will in heaven.
Why would I say he can't justify
choosing God? So I don't see why evil needs to exist. God could have created everyone with free will, as such that they were predisposed to choose God.
He's literally the stopping point in justification.
I think that the Trinity is unintelligible too, right? The idea that the Father is God, the Son is God.
I just think these things. I feel like this.
I think that even like the whole term necessary precondition is pretty unintelligible, right? He gave some explanation about the condition of the world as it is now, and then the precondition being the conditions before that. That's just completely missing what the idea of a condition is, right? Like I said, the condition to get on the roller coaster is that you must be this tall, right? That's what it means that's an example of what it is for a condition to be there. So yeah, I think that I came into this really excited to really dig down and to get the reasons as to why there must be a necessary precondition for intelligibility. And I came away from it, maybe somewhat disappointed, but ultimately it was kind of what I expected. In that, this is an unprincipled view with no arguments.
You're a fucking audience member. You're not even a debater.
But thanks to Daniel Hume and thanks to PMARS.
Thank you very much. That was it. And now we're moving on to the Q&A section of the debate. So first question. Sorry, PMARS.
No, I was just insane. Like the way he framed it is like it's my job to convince him. Like it's your job. You're supposed to debate. You're supposed to defend your view. You didn't do that. Anyways.
Okay, so PMARS, the debate today was with the prompt: the Christian God is the necessary precondition for intelligibility of human experience, and you are arguing for the proposition. So it falls to you to actually demonstrate the proposition.
I understand that, but when I make an argument, he has to give a counter argument. He doesn't have to go. He doesn't have to go to say like I'm not convinced of your argument. That's an appeal to personal incredulity. Look. He acted like an audience member. He didn't act like a debater. This is a total embarrassment and a disgrace. This is totally amateur. This is totally amateur. I'm sorry, but this is amateur.
This is amateur when you're over talking me.
Yes, this is a completely amateur debate. This was an embarrassment.
It's great stuff. Okay, So I'm gonna go straight to the questions in that case. First one is from Upogu. He says the problem of induction is also why you have a problem with hard solipsism, which isn't fixable with theism. How does PMARS claim this solves it?
What did he say? The
Especially
problem.
when you can't say, yeah. So the problem of induction is also why you have a problem with hard solipsism, which isn't fixable with theism.
The problem.
How do
No,
you, PMARS, claim your worldview solves it, especially when you
I
can't say
don't.
anything except yourself rationally exists?
Oh, because we start with the single unifying principle. So God. I don't. Hard solipsism is a problem when you start in your own mind. Your starting point's your own mind. You get trapped in your own mind. But we have different starting points. If you start with God's word revealed in Scripture, you don't have the problem of hard solipsism. That's a good problem. I think you guys should solve that.
Okay, so I'm gonna go to the second question. This is from Big O, also for you, PMARS. When is something not God? How can you disqualify God claims without presupposing you believe the correct ones?
Well, the correct claims would have to be revealed objectively in human history. That's the only way we could know God.
Oh, okay, I thought you were actually going to justify your.
Well,
but
wait,
thank
was
you
he
for
asking me
the
how do
third one.
I know God's claims in the Bible?
Yeah, when is something not God? So how can you disqualify God claims without presupposing you believe the correct ones?
Well, we would have like a criteria for judging Scripture, like if what book is Scripture or not. We would like if it has the power to change lives, if it's got some connection to Jesus or the apostles, stuff like that.
So you have to presuppose your book first, right? That's what they were saying. Because you have to start with the presupposition.
Well,
that your
everyone
book
has
is
a
the correct
starting
one.
point. Yeah. So the argument is about what starting point makes intelligibility possible. Because we all have starting point. Yeah, we start with the Bible.
So you're presupposing that. That's what the question was. So you're saying yes, you have to presuppose it.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Sorry.
Third one. Cool. Also for you, PMARS, from Upogu. Can you justify outside reality? And follow up, how can you get to that if you must first accept the outside reality of God?
It has to do with our starting point because I don't start in my own mind, so I don't have that problem. I start in the external world. So God, God is the unifier. God unifies my mind to the world, and I start with God, so I don't have that problem. I start with unity. You guys start with your mind disconnected, so that's why hard
Okay, so
solipsism isn't my
okay.
problem.
I get it. So you can actually start with something that's not your mind. What you're saying.
Well, yeah. I mean, why can't I? Why can't I start with God's revelation? According to what authority?
I mean, revelation goes into your mind, right?
We have to have a starting point for reason. So, like, an empiricist is going to start with their senses. A rationalist is going to start with human reason. I'm a Christian, so I start with God's revelation. So we have different starting points, right? So, like,
Yeah.
skeptical
You're still
problems.
getting that in your mind, right?
Well,
To be fair,
When you
maybe-
have the revelation, you're getting the revelation. in
yeah,
your mind.
revelation is just anything your consciousness comes into contact with. That's a revelation from God, in
And
my
the
view.
consciousness is in your mind also.
Yeah,
to
but
be
that's
fair,
not the
Daniel,
starting point. But
Are we
it's not the
allowing
starting point.
like follow-up questions, or I know you're eager, but
Yeah. I'm just trying to make sure that the questions are being answered for the people
enough,
that ask the questions. Fourth question, also for you, PMARS, from Dual. Why is God necessary for there to be truth?
Because you need an ultimate standard of what's true and false. So there's no other ultimate standard.
Yeah, I think he's saying it's like, why can't it be something else other than that?
Well, you're
It's
welcome to
necessary
provide.
precondition.
I've looked high and low. I've not found another candidate, and anyone's welcome to debate me. And like, if you can offer another candidate, I'll quit making this argument.
Okay. Fifth question, also from Big O, also for you, PMARS. Who came up with your argument? Also, please account for all the transcendental categories of human experience that demonstrate their necessary relationship to God.
Well, I mean, geez, that would take a long time. I don't think I could name all of them.
I mean, let's just answer the first answer the first one. Like, who came up with your argument?
So, well, I mean, technically the argument is in the Bible. It's Roman, so you could say it was Saint Paul. But I guess the philosopher that formalized it was a guy named Cornelius Van Til.
Thank you very much. Sixth question from Newbury McNoob. A question for both of you guys. Is there an objective truth in a subjective reality?
I don't understand the question.
I would say no, because there'd be
Well,
no.
I mean, just let me try to clarify. So, assuming a reality is subjective, can there be
I don't know what that
any
means.
objective truths in
Like-
that subjective reality?
He's saying if we start with like a subjective foundation for truth, can we go from a subjective foundation to like an objective truth later down the line? And I would say no, that if you have no like ultimate objective reference point, that ultimately any claim based on a subjective foundation would ultimately be subjective.
I think it's just really confused language.
Just confused
Like,
language.
it's-
That's
is
all he
there
says.
objectivity in the world? Like, yes, right? Is there an external reality? Yes. I don't know what it means for reality to be subjective.
It's a word salad. I'm trying to literally.
I mean, probably they're referring
Yeah.
to the way we perceive it. You know.
I'm literally trying to break it down as simple. I don't know how that doesn't make sense. Like, if nothing is ultimately true,
The-
then
Right.
things
Well, I
aren't
mean,
true.
as I've said like a ton of times, I'm just pushing back against the idea that there must be a foundation, right? So like questions
That's
about like, if
fine,
the foundation was
but-
this, what would happen to that? I don't know, right? I just don't have that kind of worldview.
But what you're
I
saying
don't
is
see
there's
any
no
reasons why
ultimate.
anyone should have that kind of worldview.
But you're saying there's no ultimate truth. So that's just it's insane.
Seventh question, also for you, P. Mars. Is the Old Testament part of the Bible? And are there any
Yes.
historic errors in the Old Testament?
Yes, it's part of the Bible. I think there's like scribal errors or like copying errors, but there's no like errors from God or something like that, or errors from the author.
Okay, so you would agree there are some errors there.
Yeah, like copying errors. Yeah, but yeah, I would say it's inerrant in the sense of like the author's intention.
Okay. Another one. This is a question again for you, P. Mars from Upogu. He wanted to prove paraconsistent logic using consistent logic that this sentence is false. Is the sentence true or false?
I mean, that's like blowing my mind. Well, I don't even really understand that question.
Yeah, I mean, this was a fact check because at one point in time, like Chris Sean actually, brought up like there's
Right.
other types of logic out
Right.
there, and you said that he
So-
was wrong about it. But in reality, paraconsistent logics are a formal system that allow for contradictions,
Okay,
specifically
from
the
what-
coexistence of a statement and its negation, like in the sentence that I just.
Okay, so but even a paraconsistent logician is going to say that like Apple doesn't exist and not exist at the same time in the same sense. Although there are rare people that say that, but okay, if you want to say that things can like literal actual contradictions exist, then it's like you can take that
Yeah, I mean,
view,
this-
but that's an
this sentence actually is that, right? Because if you're saying this sentence is false,
the liar's
in the
paradox.
paraconsistent logic, you have to say that it's either true, it's both true and false at the same time.
Well, the
It would
liar's
be a contradiction
paradox. you're
in
talking about?
classical logic.
Well, the liar's paradox, I would say, is like a malformed proposition. That's how I would answer that. But like, yeah,
Okay.
I don't think you can't really reason without the law of non-contradiction. So I think they're just being like sophist to deny that.
Moving on, another question from Big O for you, P. Mars. Earlier in the debate, you correctly argued that empiricism presupposes its own correctness. However, you also disbarred rationalism as an invalid epistemology. Isn't your transcendental argument an attempted argument for first principles and thus rational argumentation? Would you rescind your earlier claim about rationalism in the light of this fact?
No, I don't. So I'm not a rationalist, but I would still make rational arguments. Or like I'm not an empiricist, but I still believe I would make empirical arguments. And I would say that rationalism and empiricism need a transcendental foundation in scripture. So to even make a rational argument, you need the foundation in Scripture. So that's like kind of the point. Because without God, rationalism you couldn't get coherence in a chance universe.
Got it. This one is for you, Rishon. You said for your causality connects things as future and past, but how is that different from unity as P. Mars speaks about it?
So the part that I'm denying is that like everything connects and like has seemingly this direct connection back to unity, right? Like I think P. Mars has been saying the whole time that we need to have this foundation, and like he wants it to be God to be the foundation, or Jesus to be the foundation, and everything, all the facts of the universe trace back to that, right? And like I
Yeah.
think that the events of the universe are connected to each other through causality, for one thing, but it's not that everything, like it's like links in a chain is how I think about it. It's not that everything has a chain going back to Jesus. Like each link in the chain has a string going to Jesus. That's the part I'm denying.
Okay, but the thing is, everything is ultimately connected or not. And if you say or not, then ultimately connections are an illusion.
Okay, I think the word ultimate here kind of has all the lifting.
Ultimate
Need
is
to
just
be,
like the first.
demonstrated.
Ultimate is just like the ontologically first thing.
Which also needs to be demonstrated. But let's move on. Again, from Duke of Bread.
It's
this
literally
time is for
necessary
you, P.
for
Mars.
demonstration.
Why
And they
is
say they have to
Plato's
demonstrate
idea
it.
of good, which is the ultimate source for everything in his worldview, not an alternative to Christianity? And is there a unifier and unity? As there is a unifier and unity in his idea of good.
Yeah, but Plato has unity, but he doesn't have diversity, so distinctions. So he says like everything is ultimately an undifferentiated monad, but then we lose distinctions, and that doesn't ground logic. Plus, the objects, there's no epistemic access to them, and they're causally effete.
Can I ask a follow up here? P. Mars, like you brought up the problem of the one and the many many times, and I've heard tons of precepts bring up the problem of the one and the many. Where can I read about the problem of the one and the many? Right, like where in the literature is that? So I can't find anything about it.
Off the top of my head, you could read there's a paper called the contingency. What is it? The contingency. Let me look this up. The contingency of knowledge and revelatory theism, I think.
Cool. Nice. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, the contingency
Another
of
one
knowledge.
from Bigo for you, P. Mars. How much Jade Dyer do you watch every day? Well, I'm not really related to the to tonight's thingy.
I'm more like a Darth
And the follow-up.
Dawkins. More like a Darth Dawkins fan than a Jay Dyer fan.
I was assuming.
For what it's worth, I watch a lot of Darth Dawkins. I watch a lot of Jay. I don't watch a ton of Jay Dyer, right? Like I don't watch his like streams, but I watch all the debates that he does.
I'm preparing to debate him eventually. I need to know more about the theology and stuff, but I want to take him. I don't agree with him.
But I look forward to that. That would be awesome.
Okay, another one for you, P. Mars. How can you claim this one from also from Upogu? How can you claim God grounds logic if you must presuppose logic in order for God to even be God?
Well, the way it works is so like we all have a circular rock bottom. We all bottom out. Everyone bottoms out in a circle. But we would say like, well, the Christian circle. So it's like God's revelation grounds reason. We use reason to investigate history, and then history would identify God's revelation. So it'd be like internally consistent, and it's not arbitrary because the history part is like a publicly accessible fact. We can investigate history and see like God's interacted.
Yeah, but that wasn't really like answering like his question, because his question was, how can you claim God grounds logic if you must presuppose logic in order for God to even be God? So you have to use logic first in order to get to your God.
Well, that's why we don't start with logic. We start with God revealing Himself.
But,
So we're not
point.
maybe we're not reasoning to God. We're reasoning from God's revelation. That's how it works. I don't know if that makes sense, but
So you're not using logic at all.
we use logic, but God is the starting point. So we don't start with logic. We start with God, his revelation, and then we go logic after that.
Okay, I guess Christian, do you have any any other follow up? Because Upogo wanted your follow up on this one too.
Oh wait,
Thank
sorry,
you.
you asked the question then.
The question was for PMARS, but you wanted also like your input if you have any. How can you claim God grounds logic if you must presuppose logic in order for God to even be God?
Yeah, I guess my one thought here is, right, like when people ask for a justification for logic, right? The idea is like, okay, you can't use logic yet until you justify it to me, right? Okay, are you asking for an illogical justification? Like, surely the concept of justification is going to involve intelligibility and logic and whatnot, right? So if you're telling me to not use logic and then to show you why I can use logic, then like, you just can't do that.
No, we have to like we're saying like how do you guarantee it doesn't change? Like what in reality doesn't change, so logic doesn't change. Because everything in reality changes. Except for Jesus.
Thank you. The next question also from Upogu and also for you, PMARS. You're very popular apparently with the questions. Can you prove the Bible is ultimate, absent using sense data?
Well, we don't use sense data to prove things. We're not proving the Bible is sense data. We're saying the Bible is the self-authenticating, self-interpreting starting point. You need a
So
self-authenticating.
you're doing that after you're reading it, right?
Yeah. So the Bible makes claims.
That's using sense data, though. Like reading
Yeah,
the Bible.
I use sense
which is
data,
using
but
sense data.
that doesn't mean sense data is the justification just because you use it.
Oh, no, I did. Nobody said here that's the case. So
Well, that's what
said
I'm
it's like,
saying.
how can you do it without using your sense data?
I can't. Obviously.
Oh, okay. So that was the question, right? So,
Well,
so you cannot do it without using your sense data.
Read the Bible? No, but I don't know. Is it about justification? I thought the question was about
like you cannot prove it is ultimate without using sense data.
So the Bible claims to be ultimate, right? The Bible's making that claim, and then I accept the Bible's claim.
Oh, but it was asking how you can prove it. Like a claim.
Because I would use it the argument I made that if you don't start with the Bible, then you can't prove anything. So the proof for the Bible is
but you personally, you PMARS, you cannot do that. You cannot even start to say it without actually using sense data first.
Okay, that doesn't mean sense data is the justification.
Nobody said that. It just says
Okay,
you,
well,
you cannot do it without using your sense data. That's the whole crux of the
Okay,
question.
you can't do anything without sense data. So what?
Well, yeah, that's what I wanted to make sure that we understand each other.
Yeah, I agree. Like anytime we justify anything, we have to use sense data and logic. Yeah.
Okay, another one. In the debate, Christian asked for the explanation of God, and PMARS just restated his conclusion that God is the necessary precondition for intelligibility. Does PMARS understand that X is the necessary precondition of Y is not an explanation of X, that it is instead an explanation of Y? So what is the explanation of X? Because that was never answered.
Oh, that is the answer. I don't know. He just doesn't like it. Yes. What explains God?
So just to remind like everybody, so there was like a point in the debate where you kind of said that because Christian doesn't have an alternative, then your presupposition is the correct one. And I think what the questioner actually questions in here is the soundness of that statement.
Well, then present an alternative candidate that you can have a non-arbitrary starting point.
Yeah, but that's what he's saying.
But that's his job.
You can't say because
no, but that's his job.
I believe X is true, and if you can't prove that Y is true, then that means automatically that X is true.
That's not the argument, though. The argument is that to even deny an absolute, you'd have to have an absolute to stand on. How can you deny the absolute without an absolute? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but Christian wasn't denying an absolute.
Okay, if you question, but I've presented Jesus as the absolute. So if you go, well, Jesus isn't the absolute. Well, according to what absolute? So you can't just deny.
I mean, you did claim that. I don't think claims are necessarily proving anything.
Oh, that's not true. That's hilarious that you'd say that. Yeah, claims are evidence. Duh.
No, I said proofs. I didn't say evidence.
Proofs. Well, the proof is the positive case for the Christian worldview, and then coupled with the impossibility of the contrary.
Let's move on to the next one in that case. Where were you? Okay. So also for you, Mars from Upogu, you claimed earlier that all individuals who claim to experience revelation are telling the truth. Does this mean that individuals who have committed mass killings because of supposed revelation truly were sent to commit that harm by your Christian God? And if that is the
No.
case, explain how those actions comport with Christian values.
Anything your consciousness comes into contact with is a revelation, but we're still causal agents. So what we do is we're responsible for. So we're not, God's not responsible for your choice.
Again, another one for you, Mars. As I said, you are really popular with the questions. Does the Pythagorean theorem transcendentally exist, or is it simply an empirical description of reality? If it's the later, how is this different from the laws of logic?
Does the what? Categorical imperium?
Yeah, Pythagoras' theorem, does it transcendentally exist,
Oh.
or is it simply an empirical description of reality?
Well, I would say that's like so it's an abstraction that's trying to represent reality. So to ground, that's what we're saying about grounding. If it's purely abstract, then it's floating, disconnected from reality, and we couldn't use it to predict reality. If we can use it to predict reality, then there's it's mapping onto reality. So then it's like, what is it mapping
So it's
onto?
the second one. It's an empirical description of reality.
Yeah.
Okay, so
well, it's an abstract.
If it's the latter, so if it's an empirical description,
well, it's an abstract
reality,
representation of something empirical.
Sorry, can you repeat?
I would say it's like I can't remember what is the Pythagorean. Maybe it is conceptual. I can't remember what that one is. Does that one have to do with like geometry?
A squared plus B squared equals C squared.
Yeah.
Like square triangles.
Yeah, I mean, if it's used to like make things, then I don't know. I'm not that like a math expert. I don't know what it's used for. But it would, like, if we use the math in reality to like make a bridge, then we'd have to ground it. You know what I mean? But some math isn't.
For example, you could also say pi, right? Instead of saying the Pythagoras theorem, you can say pi, right?
Okay.
Which you're dividing the radius, the circumference of a circle to its radius, to its not radius, the other one, whatever. I don't know. It doesn't come to me right now, right? So it's an empirical description of reality, basically, right? You would agree with that, like all these math formulas, for example.
Okay, but not every math formula describes reality, because some are purely conceptual.
But these ones.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Right, because okay, so, and if that's the case, how is it different from the laws of logic? Like, why can't we say that the laws of logic are also just empirical descriptions of reality?
Well, but why does reality obey the rule? Right, that's the question. So
no, it's just they're not prescriptive; they're descriptive laws. So
but
they're just describing. They're not prescribing reality; they're describing.
But they're not just descriptive. They are prescriptive, because the matter obeys them. Matter obeys those principles. So that's prescriptive.
In the same sense, you could say that matter has to obey Pythagoras' theorem, right? So in that case, it wouldn't just simply be an empirical description of reality, and you would be contradicting yourself from earlier.
We can move on to the next one then.
I'm not really sure what's going on. Yeah, let's move on.
Okay. This one is for you, Christian. What do you determine true factors like logic, reason, and ethics to be derived from in the non-God world?
It was logic, ethics, and what? And truth.
So how do you determine true factors like logic, reason, and ethics can be derived
Where do they come from? Okay.
In a non-God world?
I think reason has like an evolutionary explanation for why intelligence is confers survival, right? Logic is, in my view, this is language that we use to describe the world, right? So if it's
so stupid,
I don't like this term grounding, right? But if it's grounded in anything, it would just be the universe, right?
This is everything he's saying is this is just hot garbage.
From
this is so
humans
dumb.
forming societal groups and interacting with each other, and like the tragedy of the commons and whatnot, and we're just naturally going to have conflict with each other and try and form societies that that have rules on how we treat each other, and that's gonna be ethics.
You wanted to say something?
Oh, I didn't know I was on. My bad.
Yeah, you're just interrupting. Thank you. So this one is also for you, P-Mars. Do you hold to scripture alone, or do you recognize the authority of the church? I mean, is the Catholic
Well,
Church
yeah, it'd be
talking about?
the scripture is the ultimate authority, and then church tradition would be sort of like a guideline.
And also from the same questioner, he presupps logic. He says, I presupp logic in the outside world. In order for P-Mars to be coherent, he must presupp logic before God, God and the outside world.
Yeah, I talked about
Yeah.
that. Like, I approximately start with
Yeah.
my reason, but then God would be the ultimate reason. That's
Yeah,
the
it's kind of like a repeat of a previous question.
Yeah.
This one. Okay, so also he's also asking you, how is it that the Bible is self-interpreting when you have outliers like Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses who come to extremely different conclusions after reading it?
Just sin. I mean, it's like just because a thermometer is broken doesn't mean there's not an objective temperature in the room.
Okay. Another one for, I'm assuming is for you, Mars. Were there people who existed before the Bible was written? If so, how are they capable of understanding the world without the thing which grounds intelligibility?
Well, they would know things, they would just lack ultimate context for their knowledge. So I'm not saying like obviously everyone people know things, but I think it's because they live in God's world.
Okay. And this one is the last question, and it's for both of you. What is an explanation as a philosophical term?
An explanation is something like that allows you to predict the future and explain like how you can predict it that way.
Thank you, Krishan.
I think explanations can be unpacked a few different ways. You could be talking about a causal explanation